Hi, folks. Welcome to The Way I See It, which is my podcast on all things money, personal finance, and of course, the economy. So, we're at the end of 2021 and we're at the season of giving, right? So, one thing about 2021 that has shown us all is that there are no islands, right? No economic islands, no islands of prosperity. We all need each other, right? So in that season or in that theme, let's talk about this giving, how can we give. And in financial planning, there's a concept, we call the chronological financial life cycle. It sort of plots, your life through stages and what happens at those stages in terms of how you invest money and how you also earn money. And when you are, say, 18 to 40, that's what we call the accumulation stage. When you get to about 55 and all that, it's called the consolidation stage. And then when you're like retirement age from 65 and upwards, we call that the spending phase, also the gifting stage. That's basically when all those investments that you've done whilst you start to work and earn, you're setting up foundations, you're transferring, you're being a giver, to causes and all that, so endowments. So that's what we'll talk about at that stage of your life where you have accumulated and consolidated, and you now want to basically gift out and just spend that money in a, not in a responsible way that and that ensures, that is those gifts keep on coming even after you are no longer there. That's basically what you want to do. So it's a very, very big part of estate planning, and this is basically what we'll talk about today. So the process really is that simple. And the objective is to have an orderly transfer and gifting of assets without loss due to dissipation. So you want to make sure you get things right so that when you are transferring it away, you are not losing most through either through to taxation or dissipation through to non-handling or your documentation in the proper way, right? So is there a right way to give? Of course, yes. Legally, you have to give in a certain way so that you can get either a tax deduction or the person you are giving the money to can basically enjoy the monies without um, any untold harm or effect, right? So if you earn more as an individual, of course, you have a higher tax liability. So if you then give away your money, either through charities, especially in the United States, you can reduce your taxable income. So if you earn 1 million and you give away 100,000, then you can basically write that you earn 900,000 because the 100,000 you're giving away reduces your taxable income. Not so much so in Nigeria. We don't see a lot of tax deductibility for individuals, but companies and corporations do give, right? So one also focus on that aspect in Nigeria. But of course, outside Nigeria, you can give in the church, the charities get a receipt, and you can file it in your taxes, but not so much over here, right? So Nigeria, of course, designates, should we say, organizations that are tax exempt, right? So I mean, because of COVID, they just added that in that if you do give monies towards COVID, it's not specific towards COVID, but if you give monies towards those causes, you can write it off in the new Finance Act from your operations, right? But before then, you then have like cooperative societies that are registered under ecclesiastical, charitable, educational establishments of a public character, right? So those guys, they basically are tax exempt from paying company income taxes. So what this means is that if you set up, for instance, Old Boys College of John's College, something like that, Old Boys Association of John's College, and that association owns maybe a restaurant, and that restaurant does private business, it buys and sells food, and it makes a profit. That profit, if it's earmarked towards scholarships at the John's College, then that entire company is more or less a tax exempt organization. Because even though you are engaging in commercial business, the funds are flowing right back to your endowment, which is then funding scholarships in John's College. So because of that, the Nigerian government will give you a tax exempt, right? So it's a very, very great, good way to save. If you have two or three friends, you guys can form a friendship society or a cooperative, and then you can fund a charity or a cause that you like. So instead of giving individually, form the cooperative, then give to the cooperative, and the cooperative can then give to your charity, and then the cooperative can then get that tax benefit. Same thing with the trade union that is registered. So if you guys have the association of, say, stockbrokers, right, and that is a registered trade union, and the trade union publishes the say stock market news, and the stock market news is then bought by general public who then read it, right? So any profit you do make because you're a registered trade organization selling that paper, that would also be considered, tax exempt because it's a registered trade union and all that. So it's exempt from paying those taxes. So those are the tax exempt organizations in Nigeria. Like I've said, because of Finance Act as well, that was also expanded to include the COVID donations that most corporations did make towards the COVID. But then again, if you're making a donation, right, it also has to pass certain tests, right? So for a donation to qualify as a deductible donations in Nigeria, right, then the public fund, right, that public fund that you're setting up, that is either ecclesiastical, charitable, educational, scientific, that is receiving that donation, right, must be established and incorporated in Nigeria. And of course, you want to make your due diligence that whoever you're giving to is established and incorporated. So even if you form the association, make sure it's registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission as a legally set up body, right? That's the first thing we do. Then the donations must be made out of the profits, right? It cannot be a capital expenditure. So you have to make donations out of profit. You can't go build a house for the association, something like that. That will be capital. So that means that the company can only donate from gross profits, right? Only donate from gross profits, right? And the donations cannot exceed 10% of the total profits of that company, right? In the year of assessment that the donation was made. So you have to donate out of profit and it can't exceed more than 10%. But it's an exemption here, right? If you're donating to a school, right, then you can do a capital project. So you can construct a laboratory for a school, right? And it can be capital in nature. They would allow that for you. And it can be 15% of total profits, not the 10% that is for non-educational foundations, right? So you then get that leeway if you're donating to a school. So the St. John's School can get the 15%, and you can build them a laboratory because it's a school, right? And then, of course, the donations made by a company should not include any payment made by the company for valuable consideration. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to pay you a bill, and that's going to be a donation." No, you have to separate the donation from a normal commercial transaction that you're doing with the school. So then, of course, so knowing those laws as to who we can give money to and how our donations can qualify for deductibility. So then how do we then give, right? So like I said, the first thing to understand is that you can give individually and get the benefits. You can give, but you don't get a tax benefit if you give individually. So the very, very first thing if we try to give is to ensure that we're giving with a good heart and from a good place. So it's always a good idea to donate to the environment, to the poverty causes, to education, to poverty alleviation, because you're pulling everyone up, and then as you pull more people up, the society as a whole gets better and healthier. So it's always a good idea to give, right? So the first thing I would advise, if you're going to give, try to incorporate an entity that can get the most benefits from the tax breaks. And like we've seen, if you can form a cooperative or a charitable organization that is ecclesiastical or that's religious or educational, that's going to be where you can get the best bang for it. So if it's a school, you can give as much as 15. If it's a non-school, you can give as much as much as 10%, right? So whenever you have friends, try to come together and then try to accumulate your savings together, build a track record of supporting charitable causes. And if you can register that institution, then you never know, you could even approach third party to also give, and then you guys could then donate and get the best bang for that donation. And of course, you want to build in corporate social responsibility into the fabric of your organizations, right? And the research is out there that shows that companies that embrace good corporate social responsibilities get rewarded by the marketplace, right? The market tends to look at those brands as being more responsible and attuned to today's concerns. It's a study by Greenprint, right? India. It's called their Business of Sustainability Index, and they found that 2/3 of Americans are willing to pay more for sustainable products, right? So if I see something is made and it's protect the environment, I'm willing to pay more for that because I think that those costs are because they are trying to do it the right way, right? So very important that we incorporate CSR. So keep records of all your donations. If you do a donation, make sure you ask for a receipt and you file that receipt. Um, Very, very important. Also important that you remember that you can donate management time as well. So when you donate management time, make sure you track that time and you can say, hey, the staff worked on this charitable project and we want to record it at the very, very least, right? So some instances your staff can work and the company would match their donations with cash. If you want to do that, make sure you keep those records and you're basically um, doing a good thing for the organization as well, right? So make sure you track, make sure you record with donations, and then make sure you are basically filing and submitting. And also very good idea to talk about your donations, right? So people are trying to be too modest, right? We're not asking you to brag, but when you advertise what you are doing, you are also helping the beneficiary. When you say, hey, we give money to the Sickle Cell Foundation, you're drawing attention to the sickle cell society and sickle cell causes everywhere. So more people can actually see what you're doing and because of that, go give to them. So when you give, always a good idea to do a press conference, give and all that. But please don't spend money more on the press conference than the actual donation. Just do a press mention. Social media is technically free. Put it up there, people will see it. Put a link to the charity so people can go in there and then donate if they don't want to, right? So even though individual giving is not tax exempt, you can also in your organization, if you can afford it, say, hey, if you guys give, if your employees give, we will match you. So if they give 1,000 naira, you would match 1,000, or you would match 10%, or you do something. That also shows that you're being thoughtful and also committed to what your employees care about. So that's another good way to get involved and to reward your employees for being charitable, right? So just in closing, giving has got to be, thoughtful. It's got to be organic. It's got to show empathy. It shouldn't be a PR stunt, right? It's got to be real because, like I said at the very beginning, we all need each other. That's what the COVID-19 has basically shown us. Sorry, I had to get to that for us to appreciate that point. But the more we give, the more we become better, the more we become more empathic to every other's needs. All right, guys. So enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy this season. I'll see you guys all in the new year. You guys have a good day. Keep following Fin Plan Kalu Aja One on Twitter. I love you guys. Stay safe.